Hello, my name is Alex Disher and I'm from the Design Center product marketing team. In today's Design Center how-to video, we will be discussing styling and design, specifically focusing on styling and design tools and using them to create compelling product aesthetics, which in this demonstration is a body of a computer mouse, which contains multiple smooth and rounded edges. This video will showcase advanced tools like raster images for design inspiration and reference, studio splines for intricate curve creation, and utilize analysis tools to ensure the highest quality and fluidity of your curves. This approach empowers designers to achieve sophisticated, production-ready surfaces, dramatically accelerating the journey from concept to a beautifully crafted product. To start, we can see I already have some images set up in an orientation to help us begin modeling around them. However, if you were starting from scratch to set up something like this, you'd of course create a new part file, as I've done here. From there, in the search bar, you can look for the command raster images. Once in the command window, you can see that recently used images will already appear for you to click, or you can select an image you may want from either your own operating system or Team Center. In this case, I'll first click the plane I want the image in and grab an image from my operating system. Once the image is in the command window, you can simply select it and move it around to wherever you see fit. You also have the ability to change the reference direction, the insertion point, and the base point as shown. Then we will repeat those same steps for the bottom view of the mouse and move it to wherever we see fit. Once it's moved, you can tell it's beginning to look similar to what I showed you in the other part model. But instead of going through all the steps and moving the images around, we'll just move on to that model and begin showing you the powerful styling and design tools. To start, we'll first go to the Curve tab and select Studio Spline. From there, we'll first pick the Z-axis so that all of our points in Spline are constrained to the same plane. Then we'll select 4 points across the top of the mouse. After selecting the 4 points, we'll extend each of the ends out a bit, and we'll do this for all of the following splines we make so that it'll be easier later on for trimming. Then, using the raster images as reference, we'll make our studio spline align with them. To ensure the quality of our spline, we'll go under the Analysis tab and select Show Combs. This feature shows the curvature of each point as shown when I move the endpoint, and what you want to see is smooth and continuous curvatures. If you have any jumps, for example, then you know you have an underlying issue in your curvature at that point where it jumps. Moving on to the next studio spline, we'll follow the exact same procedure for the front, specifying our thesis, picking our points, and finally extending them and checking the combs again. Then we'll finish up by doing the exact same thing for the back end of the mouse. Moving on to the next set of studio splines and curves, we'll first create a new thesis to put a spline in the YZ direction. We'll simply create a datum thesis and drag in the XZ direction, eyeballing it for the middle image, which seems to be about 74 millimeters. Once we do this, we'll then return to the studio spline command and select the specific thesis plane from the new one we made, picking the XZ plane. Then, instead of placing our points, we want to make sure all of our splines are connected when we start to make curves. So select the point constructor within the command window, and then we'll select intersection point, followed by picking the curve and plane of where we want the point. As you can see, we now have a point in our studio spline that is exactly on the intersection of the one studio spline in the plane we will be working on. Once that is complete, we can then place our next 2 points, align them all, and extend our endpoint out. Another accuracy tool you could use is right-clicking on any point, for this example the top point, and selecting Specify Constraint. Here, you can then specify the constraint to that specific point that you may want or need. The next step will now be creating another studio spline for the side of the mouse, following the exact same process that we have done for the other previous splines. Once we have completed all the necessary studio splines, we can begin to start creating the body of the mouse. To do this, we'll first select the Surface tab, then Studio Surface. Once in the command window, you will first select the primary curve and then the curve you want crossed with or guided along. Here we can see the results. At first, everything looks pretty good, but as we move to the top view of the mouse, we can see part of the raster image is sticking out and not fully covered. To fix this issue, we can simply scroll down in the command window and under Output Surface Options, select Switch Strings. Now we can see the raster images are fully covered and we can finish creating the studio surface. Once we do this, we can then help confirm our studio surface is formatted and aligned correctly by going under the Analysis tab and choosing Reflection. To give us an even better view, we can then go under the View tab, then More, and pick Mirror Display. This will mirror the entire studio surface and give us a much better view of the reflection analysis. From the reflection analysis, we can then see there are smooth and continuous curves, confirming that everything we have done so far is correct. Moving on, we'll shut off the mirror display and hide the studio surface to make it easier for us to continue working. From there, we'll then return to the studio spline and following the exact same process as we had done before, we'll create one for the side and front from the top view. While we create the front spline, we can go back into Point Constructor and using the Inferred command, we can select the origin of the datum ceases, exactly placing one of our points there and then continuing on. Once we finish those two studio splines, we have completed all the studio splines that we need to continue on. So once again, we'll return to the studio surface command and create a studio surface for the side of the mouse. Turning on the display to ensure it's visible, and once again double checking with the switch strings option, ensuring it's set up correctly. Then we repeat the same process for the front. We need to select switch strings as it's not aligned with the raster images correctly. Once all are complete, we'll then make them all visible. From there, we'll then go to the Combine command, and this is where we trim off all the extra surfaces we don't need, and the reason we extended all those splines. To do this, we simply select the bodies we want kept and hit OK. Once we're done with this step, we can tell now that we have a good general shape of half the mouse, but much more can be done to improve it. For example, looking at our front view here, comparing the raster image and our model so far, we can tell that the edges don't quite follow the same path. To help visualize this better, we can turn on Face Edges Preference under the Display tab. To fix this issue and make the model more accurate, we can return to the Surface tab and use the command Xform. Using this command, we can simply select and drag each point individually until it matches the alignment to what we want. Alternatively, we can also use the advanced method to change it proportionally and move all the points proportionally. But for this example, we'll just move them one by one until it's roughly close. Then we check it and realize it's still off, then continue editing until it's about right. Next, to make the model even more aesthetically appealing, we can use a face blend to round off the corner of the mouse. We do this by simply selecting the curve we want rounded off and the two faces, then our desired radius, in this case 21 millimeters. We do need to ensure that the shape is set to curvature symmetry to ensure a smooth, uniform face blend. Then to visualize this better, we can again turn on face edges to see the edit we just made. Then, using a similar tool to that of Face Blend, under More, we'll use the command Aesthetic Face Blend. And this command will select our two faces, making sure we have the law type set to multi-transition to allow us to have a different radius blend in different areas. To pick what areas we use, we specify a new location and pick a spot that we see fit. At first, we get an error regarding incorrect normal direction. To fix this, we simply reverse the directions, and now we get a preview of our results. From this, it actually looks pretty reasonable, so then we select OK. After this, we can now see it looks like we have half a mouse modeled, and to get a different look, we can again turn on face edges. Then, similar to what we did before to get a better view, we'll turn on the mirror display. From that, we can tell we have a finished body of a computer mouse. Then, to do one last check of our work, we can again, under Analysis, use the Reflection command and verify everything is smooth and the lines line up. And that wraps up today's Design Center how-to video on styling and design, showing you how to transform a concept into a beautifully sculpted product. We started by leveraging raster images for precise design inspiration and then moved into the art of creating intricate curves with studio splines. You saw how studio surfaces bring those curves to life and how essential analysis tools like show combs and reflection are for ensuring the highest quality and fluidity in your designs. We also explored powerful refinement tools like X-form and precise adjustments, face blends for smooth rounding, and the advanced aesthetic face blend for those nuanced multi-radius transitions. Finally, we used combine to trim our surfaces and mirror display to visualize our complete symmetrical design. These tools empower you to achieve a sophisticated, production-ready surface, dramatically accelerating the journey from concept to a beautifully crafted and aesthetically appealing product. Thank you.